You don't. Deafening silence.
We all realise that we're getting recorded.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Snowy Valleys Council meeting, the 16th of June 2022. I'd now call on Councillor Ham if she would do the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mayor Chaffey. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today for our council meeting, the people of the Wiradjuri people, and also to acknowledge my Tumbarumba buddies over at the Narragaow people, and to any other people within the Snowy Valleys Council area. And we would all like to pay our respects to elders past and present.
Thank you very much. I'll now read out the preamble. Live streaming of the council meeting. This meeting is live streamed on council's website to allow the community to follow council debate and decisions. Members of the public participating in the meeting agree to have their images, voice and personal information, including names and addresses, recorded and publicly broadcast. Snowy Valleys Council does not accept liability for any defamatory remarks or inappropriate comments that are made during the course of the meeting. Any part of the meeting that is held in closed session will not be streamed. Temporary provisions under the Local Government General Regulations 2021. The Council is now operating under temporary provisions expiring on 30th of June 2022 of the Local Government Act General Regulations 2021, which give council discretion to allow councillors to attend remotely under exceptional circumstances. Statement of ethical obligations. Council are reminded of the oath of affirmation of office they made under section 233A of the Local Government Act of 1993 and the obligations under council's code of conduct to disclose and appropriately manage conflicts of interest. The use of mobile phones at council meetings. Please ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or are in silent mode for the duration of the meeting, and no recording of voice or images is permitted. In the event of an emergency at council meetings, in the event of emergency, please evacuate the building using the nearest exit and follow the instructions given by the wardens. Do not use the lift. If participating in the meeting from an alternative venue, please enact the evacuation plans for that location. Do we have any apologies? Leave of absence. I would like to seek leave of absence for the next council meeting, the July council meeting, as I will not be here. Do we need a notice?
Yes.
Someone move?
I'll move that.
Second, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any other apologies? If not, declarations of pecuniary interest. Now, I believe this could take some time, so could we commence? Who wishes to go first?
Sorry, who was the seconder of the NC?
Fancy.
Yeah, thank you.
Fancy? Sorry, Councillor Amor.
Yes, ma'am. I declare a pecuniary interest in relation to report 11.4 due to a non-pecuniary interest and will leave the room during the session. I declare a pecuniary interest also in relation to 11.3, which is a non-pecuniary interest of non-significance, but I'll stay in the room.
Anyone else?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll declare a pecuniary interest in relation to report 13.1, which is confidential, due to being an impacted staff member, and I believe it's very true discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayoral, non-pecuniary interest, only contract, so, it may affect me in the future, so I'll be
Through the Mayor, I'll declare a non-pecuniary interest in report, late report confidential 1.1, as I'm a director on the board of Local Government Professionals New South Wales, and one of the applicants is this.
Thank you.
And I'll leave the room for the discussion and a vote.
No further? The public forum?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion that we bring report, sorry, I had the number down here, the 11.4, the proposed food and drink industry micro distillery, bring that report forward
To now? Or no, at what
to
point?
when we get to the point of going through the actual reports.
Right, very good, thank you.
We need a second there.
Is there a seconder? Put the motion, all those in favour? Against, carried. Confirmation of,
Sorry.
no,
Sorry, you have to read out who it is.
oh,
So mover,
councillor
Was
Thompson,
seconded
second,
councillor
councillor
Larter.
Larter. No, my apologies. Confirmation of the minutes. We're running this issue. Any comments that anyone wishes to make regarding the minutes?
I'll move those minutes be accepted.
Been moved by councillor Thompson, seconded by councillor Idle. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Correspondence and petitions? None. Notice of motion, notice of rescission, there is none. Mayoral minute is the appointment of an interim CEO.
I'll
We
move.
have the recommendation.
I'll move it.
Been moved by councillor Hayes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ham, I'll put the motion. Any further debate?
Oh, look, just to, as I mentioned before, just to say that if we are doing these in future, it'd be nice to, for all councillors to be informed of the process and kept in the loop.
I'll take that on board. Councillor Hayes, any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, carried. I will have a comment to make later in the meeting regarding our present CEO. So that will come up later on in the meeting. Urgent notice. Business without notice, there's nil. Governance and financial report 10.1.
so you've got 11.4 has been moved forward. If you'd like
You're
to deal
right
with
to
that,
move
Mr.
level to the beginning, righto. 11.1, 11.4, my apologies, if you want to deal with 11.4.
Councillor Hayes left the room.
Righto. 11.4 is the proposed food and drink industry micro distillery on lot 26 DP 1018407 2-722 Little River Road, Little River.
I'll move the recommendations on page 64.
It's been
Maybe just
moved
second.
and seconded, moved by councillor Thompson, seconded by councillor Ham. Is there any debate?
Could I ask to go into committee?
Councillor Ham, wish to go into committee? Is there a seconder? Councillor Hayes, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, carried
Unanimously.
unanimously. Would you like to start the conversation?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chaffey. I suppose I just want to say in the beginning, thank you to everyone who has put so much work into this, and that includes members of the council who have been part of this, to the McDougals who have worked really hard for this to come about and hopefully come about, and to the people speaking in opposition and for their quality presentations today. From that quality presentation, I have 3 questions, if I may. And they probably, through you, Mr. Mayor, will probably go to Mr. Wilton. The first one is saying that if we pass this today, the CEO can still add additions later. What, is that correct?
Through the Mayor. Once a determination is made in relation to the proposal, if that determination is by way of approval, the council also would be delegating to the CEO to apply standard conditions of development consent to any approval that's issued.
So that's like standard for anyone.
Correct.
Yeah, but right, okay. So that sounds quite logical. Yeah. Okay, and two, so within the presentation, it was said that they didn't know the capacity or how much was going to be produced. Do we know what's going to be produced?
Through the Mayor, the capacity of the facility is on page 72 of the report, which talks up to 4,000 litres in volume.
Excellent.
That's right.
And will anyone keep an eye on that?
Through the Mayor, what actually ends up happening is the conditions of consent will prescribe the maximum limits that can be achieved at any given time through the production process. That remains a lawful position of council. So if they want to vary that, they'll have to come back to council to modify the consent.
Sure. And who keeps an eye on it?
It's if there's complaints lodged in relation to
Sure.
that,
Good.
then council will investigate.
Okay. And then finally, there was concerns about any toxic material basically being absorbed into the soil. So what sort of drainage is there to stop the river being polluted?
Yeah, so there's two aspects to this. So the development application talks to an on-site sewer management system. It's proposed in concept. And then if the application is approved, there's a secondary stage under Section 68 of the Local Government Act, which will require them to obtain a on-site sewer management approval, which will then look at the detailed components of that system and how it operates.
Thank you.
Question? Councillor Lara?
Look, I'll just make comment about that. I mean, the main objections that I heard were in relation to not knowing the upper limit, which I think has now been advised that there is an upper limit, and that's part of the DA approval. Secondly, that there was concerns about the sewage, but with respect, I would have thought that the cabin operators either side would be having more of an environmental impact from a sewage point of view on site management than this particular proposal, unless there's a lot of toilet activity, but it wouldn't. You'd obviously have an approval to meet the forecast for the sewage septic system. Is that right? So, look, I think the difficulty is with these plans is that sometimes people have objections to them for various reasons, and it all comes down to personal circumstances, and I can understand that. But from a position of governance in relation to what our responsibilities are, I don't see any problem with this going forward. I see it as an opportunity for a symbiotic approach from neighbours that are tourism operators to work in harmony with this venture, because I see it as a win-win for those people. If you've got a microbrewery there and you've got accommodation providers either side of it, I think that they should all be sitting down together and working out a program to ensure that everyone gets a slice of the pie. I think that's just common sense, and it's what we're trying to achieve in building the tourism capacity and regional development for our area and our economy. The success stories are there to see. The Kurabayas, they're the success stories. I don't mean to highlight anyone in particular, but I mean that is a great business that's doing wonderful things for the community, and I see that this is another potential opportunity for the Snowy Valleys to have a centrepiece that will attract visitation.
Thank you. The first thing I'd like to do is to thank the developers for actually hanging in there and continuing, because it's been 2 years of a lot of hard work for them. And continuing on what Councillor Lada has just said is that, we've just been through a trails and tracks planning system, and if we're trying to attract people to come to our region, we need to be providing them with other activities to do. The destination is one thing, but when they get here, they want to be able to do more than one thing or two things. And looking at the design of the building and having been out on site, what a magnificent area to be able to go out and sit and relax and enjoy some of what we're fighting so hard to keep the nature tourism of our area going. That this is a perfect example of people being able to either, if they're really keen, they can ride their bikes out there. But it's about the opportunity. The Pretty Parrot is already a known brand. They don't even have to work on their branding. It's there. So to me, the common sense is that we work to allow the development to go through. The conditions that are then put on that will ensure that things like the output and the environment and the EPA and the sewage are all met. But I think we should be supporting an initiative that we're not being asked to pay for, but it's having an enormous flow on for our local economy as well as local people, our tourists, and it gives us an extra feather to promote ourselves.
Any other comments? Councillor Livermore?
Yeah, look, just to endorse some of the things Councillor Lada raised there, and I'm sure it'll happen anyway, but if we can just ensure that within the conditions of consent for the DA or the approval conditions under the Section 68, that there are quite specific requirements there, maintenance and inspection of the AWTS facility. And then obviously, because there were objectives to it, a copy of the DA with the conditions of consent would be sent to those objectives for them to see the sorts of requirements that have been put on it for its operation.
Councillor Hayes?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The longer this goes on, the more questions arise, and some are answered and some are not. The on-site sewage management, Mr. Wilton, if I may, through the Mayor, separate system?
Through the Mayor, there's going to be an extension to the dispersion area in terms of where it's going to be land applied. So it'll actually be pumped uphill from where the actual existing tanks are, in front of the Pretty Parrot building, essentially. So it gives it a greater land area. It's further away from the actual river itself, and that will be further assessed through the Section 68 approval system.
So separate to residential.
Correct.
The conditions of developmental consent, I'm usually used to them coming up with the actual report. So I'm not worried, but I'm concerned that we didn't have all of those in front of us now. So we're making a decision on something that we don't know what all the conditions are. So that's a concern for me. That's a major concern for me. The traffic is going to be an interesting one, particularly for the person who lives in front of the establishment. So that's a concern. And I think the other thing is the road, which is ours, further back towards Tumut, is quite dangerous, I would suggest. So that worries me as well. I noticed the cost is 200,000, which I think is particularly low. I would have thought for a building of this sort, and maybe if those builders, when they finish doing this, could build us a indoor sports stadium, I think we could come in well under budget. Or yes, or whatever we call it. And I think finally, as Councillor Lada said, the symbiosis potential is there, and it's up to the various people that live out there to work together, I think, and that's unfortunate that it hasn't happened to date, and there certainly is potential there. So I note that. Thank you.
Any further?
Can I
Councillor Ham?
just ask, the people that you were talking about next door, are they on the dirt road? So,
Yep.
so they can apply for a dust strip or something, because there will be a lot more traffic.
I'll move that we go back into council.
Before we
sorry.
do, I do agree with Councillor Hayes's comment about the conditions. We aren't aware of the conditions. And I think that, in my opinion, is something that we need to consider in our recommendation, because if we're not aware of them, how do we know what they are when we're in the approval process? That's a concern to me. Having identified that, if we go back into council, is someone to move? Councillor Thompson, is there a second? Sorry, Councillor.
The Mayor, just in relation to those taskings or those conditions, it's obvious because it's a public interest and there's been that it's come to us, but ordinarily we wouldn't be aware of the conditions imposed under the umbrella from downstairs. Ordinarily, they would just be within the confines of the legislation.
Process,
so, I mean, provided nothing's outside the instruments, I wouldn't have thought that. I agree. It's probably nice to know, but unless there's something out of the ordinary, I think it's probably a reasonable thing. We let the staff do their job.
It's not delayed.
I agree, but however, as you say, it's become an item of contention, and it would be beneficial for us as elected representatives to have an understanding as to what those conditions.
Just saying that so that anyone watching understands that it's not.
This is not a normal.
Yeah.
Right, it's been moved. There's a second. Councillor Ham, I think you moved. We go back.
Can I just say with the seconders, we'll vote on going back in, then I'll say what I need to say.
I'll put the motion all against carried. Back to the debate.
In conjunction with Councillor Ham, we just need to change in recommendation 2. Determine it's actually determine the development application, not determine the determination. So the wording is
Correct.
just to have development, not determination as the second. So
with that amendment, are you happy with that, Councillor Ham?
Yes.
I'd like to speak to the motion then, since I've moved it.
Councillor Thompson.
I think it's really important that we start looking at moving this development forward, and I think that the developers have been incredibly patient. I understand the concerns that were raised through the public forum today, and I do believe that the staff member who's overseeing, Mr. Wilton, is actually aware of the concerns that everybody has raised, and I'm sure that the developers, who also heard all of the concerns that were raised today, are more than willing to address those issues. But at the end of the day, they just want to be able to get on with the job of getting this developed, because every month that we wait is another month that we're not getting that development done. And I think that we continually talk about needing to diversify in the opportunities that we're providing. And I think this is one of those diversifications that's going to be an absolute bonus to our region. They are already a well-known and branded product, not only in our region, but Australia. And that's why I'm prepared to support this going through today.
Any further discussion? There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against?
You'll have to say it.
Sorry?
You'll have to say it to the minute taker can.
All right. So we have
It's development.
one against. Councillor Hayes is against the development, and the rest of the councillors are in favour. Very good. You can invite councillor Mayoral back in. Thank you.
Procedurally, do we need to go back to going back to the
It does that
agenda?
automatically.
That's right. We're going back to 10.1 now. Thank you. Is it 10.1 up?
So they got up. Got up.
No, we've done 10.1. Am I?
10.1 is the
We did 10.1.
integrated planning and reporting suite for adoption.
Did we do the Mayoral minute first?
We've already
Done
done
that.
I've already
Mayor
done
and
that,
minutes
sorry.
been done.
Yeah.
Is there a mover?
I'll move the suite of documents. I'll move all 4 recommendations.
Is there a seconder?
Before we do, Mr. Mayor, I just wondered whether it might be worth discussing the United Nations section of it, and
Can we do that
Well, we
do
can't because
after we've
it's
got
not
the
moved.
formal?
Seconded.
yeah, we can do that.
I'll put
second.
seconder, councillor Ivel. Discussion. Do you wish to go into committee to discuss this? Someone move. Councillor Larter, is there a seconder? Councillor Livermore, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Any debate on the issues that are listed in the integrated planning and reporting suite?
Look,
Councillor Hayes.
yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago at the workshop, and I know Councillor Larder and Councillor Ivel weren't there for that, but basically I mentioned the United Nations Charter, which we've mentioned in this, and the possibility of leaving it out because I thought it probably creates more trouble than it's worth. It's not to say that we don't do most of those things and we don't have those aspirations, but to include it creates animosity in the community, and it creates an expectation that we will follow through on some of those things, and some of those make it very almost impossible potentially for some of our small business owners to operate their businesses. So I don't think it's worthwhile including. I think it creates more trouble than it's worth, and I would ask that it be excluded from the plan.
Further discussion?
No, I support what Councillor Hayes just said. I don't think it's got any place in the local government document whatsoever. The devil's in the detail with this stuff, in the fine print, and there's probably north of 5,000 or 6,000 different things that you could be chained down to in relation to this. So what the United Nations has got to do with Snowy Valley's council's got me baffled, but solve a lot of things in 2022. So I think it should just be struck out, and let's keep going.
It's an unnecessary distraction. That's probably the best way to put it.
Any further discussions on the issue of the United
Yes,
Nations?
please.
Councillor Thompson.
I fully understand that this will probably not remain within the community strategic plan. However, from my perspective, I'd just like to say that, we don't only have a level of commitment to those within our own postcodes. Many things of what we do, we have a responsibility to local government required to fit in with the guidelines, legislation, plans, concepts beyond our immediate community. And I understand that the inclusion of the United Nations points is not welcome by some, but then there are many aspects of that we're looking at, and we look beyond our own. It's not just within our own backyard that we need to be caring. And I use the example at the moment, Rotary is selling sunflowers to help Ukraine. We have international organisations that are providing assistance and support overseas. And this came about because initially the United Nations was included within the framework of the Community Strategic Plan. And the reason it's now introduced is because this is the first Community Strategic Plan that's been developed since that inclusion. So I'm not going to die in a ditch over it. I understand that we live in a democracy and I really value and respect that democracy. But just as I respect the democracy for others to vote the way they choose to, I would fully support retaining the United Nations Charter within there, because I do believe that we as a council, you know, I think the comment was made earlier about we live or look globally and act locally. And I think that if we're choosing what we consider to be important to us locally, and then cherry picking what we want to be involved with beyond, whether it be Transgrid, whether it be the environment, whether it be weeds, whether it be energy efficiency and climate change. So from my perspective, I would choose to keep it in there, but I'm part of a democracy and we have 9 councillors who get to vote.
Any further comments regarding it? Councillor Livermore.
I'm sort of trying to get my head around some of this stuff. Whether it remains there or was taken out is, I'm probably fairly indifferent about that. But given that I don't think this stuff will go away, because obviously state government have picked this up and introduced this, and that's where it's come from, being introduced into your CSP plan. However, just going back to the presentation we received earlier today, it's quite obvious that there's a lot of things in this that are not in the realm of council. So we shouldn't be sort of letting any false expectation get out there into the community that your council can fix all the problems of the world. However, I think it would be at some point in time, and obviously we're not going to do that today, whether it's through a workshop process or whatever, it probably wouldn't hurt to be forearmed by going through and identifying those things that council can do that in some way align with some of these other principles, so that when you're asked the question, well, what are you doing about such and such? Okay, we can clearly say, well, this, as a council, these are the things we can do about that particular issue. In the short term, like as I say, whether it's there or not, I mean, I think we'd need probably more information on it, but I don't think it's going to go away, so I wouldn't ignore it. I think we need to control the debate as it suits us, or as it applies to us.
Any further comments?
Just on that topic, I think we've got a lot more to discuss here, but yes, I see what Councillor Livermore's saying, but the way the argument was presented to me is that we have to be very aware that our biggest producer economically is beef production. And if you were to take those goals and break them down and break them down and break them down, one of the goals is to cut back on meat production, which could have a huge impact on our beef and sheep production within our area.
By 50%.
By 50%. So by 2030. So as a farmer, that does concern me, and I'd like to thank the people that brought it to my attention.
And if you think spam's bad, wait till you try their rubber meat.
I think we won't go down that. Councillor Ivey.
Through the Mayor, if the decision is to take it out for this this document for this year, there's nothing to stop us, once we understand a little bit better, from reinserting it in the future once we get our heads around. Because I take Councillor Livermore's comment; it's quite a lot to absorb, and it's really important that we understand how that relates globally, but also locally to us as well. So.
Certainly highlights the broad sweeping range of what is being proposed here versus what's in the best interest of our community, both in the short term and the long term. If there's no further debate about the discussion about the UN inclusion in the community strategic plan, I'd like to propose an introduction of swimming pool charges in the fees and charges for this year. And I suggest that they be $3 for an adult and $2 for children, with a family concession of $10 per season. The reason I suggest that is I look at the fees and charges and think we charge everybody else for the use of council facilities, and however, the users of the swimming pool, the 5 swimming pools in our local government area, are exempt from those fees and charges, and I think that that to me is an inequality within the organisation that I don't think we can afford to continue. So I'd be interested in anybody else's comments on these issues, and I'll be guided by what the council's decision is, but I believe it's something that we need to consider. Councillor Ham?
I've always thought that we should charge for swimming pools. However, I have seen the success over the last 4 years of free swimming pools, and it's a really hard thing to gauge, isn't it? Because you've got weather, you've got COVID and everything over the last 4 years. However, like you, I'm into user pay. I was thinking when I was thinking about this, whether we compromise a bit and suddenly charge the $3 for adults, but under 18-year-olds are free. So something to put out there.
Comments?
Can I
Councillor Thompson?
It was really interesting, and thank you to the CFO for the information that she provided after the workshop that we did. When you look at the, from my perspective, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, a lot of that increase in revenue came from the swimming lesson fees. I mean, nearly $36,000 in Tumut collected through fees for the swimming. I think there was 8,500. So it listed each of, so that was a significant income, but that was fees that people were paying for the service that they were being provided. I don't know that I would go with the $3. I think if we're going to implement a fee to start with, I would be happier with a $2 fee, and to introduce that to people so that they get used to having a fee that they're paying and not feel that we've gone from zero to hero in one season. That's my concern, but I do acknowledge that I think a lot of that income has come from what we have charged people as a service fee for swimming lessons, because the swimming lessons weren't free.
Look, the pools aren't free. The entry to the pool is free. And it's the old adage, first get the customer in the door. And what have we done? We've doubled the patronage. And look, if you're running any business, if you can double your patronage, you're doing pretty well. Not only have we doubled the patronage, we've increased the income.
That's only because you've reduced the hours significantly. I
Don't agree with that.
Well, it's not the income. Cut that.
We've increased the income.
We need to look at the figures.
Well, we have, and we've been given those, and perfectly clear business case that you know what we set out to do along 4 years ago, we've achieved. We've achieved better patronage. We've achieved more income. And you want to change that? I don't think it makes sense. It doesn't make economic sense to me.
Any other comments?
Councillor Hughes.
Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, a lot of the points to raise to reintroduce fees don't really make much sense. So where do you want me to start? Okay, so let's start with the beginning. A kid on a football field doesn't get charged for kicking a football. Last time I checked, he's the club he plays for. If a competition is being held on a football field, the kid pays the money, the parent pays the money. If I'm quite happy, if a competition is being held at a swimming pool, the kid and the parent should pay for the money, pay the fee. The kid who wants to go for kick a football around, who's going to charge him? How are you going to charge him? And why would you charge him? Why is that equitable to do the same thing to every other facility we've got, open field facility. Having something for the kids to do who are on the low economics spectrum in the town is a benefit for all. It means that they're off the street, they've got something to do. Most of the time, they just want something to do in a swimming pool area, with a fence around it, with a supervisor. They're in one of the most safest places and most trustable safest places that we can have them in. I'm surely that's a benefit to the community. Is it not? Swimming pools and ovals are always going to be losing. We're not going to be able to charge enough to make a profit out of these things. So the interesting feature is that the data says that although they're still making a massive loss, they're making less of a massive loss than they were if we were charging for it. What we've got is a simple economics, it looks like, of more patronage, more footpath. We've basically moved the swimming pools from 2nd Street to 1st Street. There's much more people walking past it, just simply more possibilities. And the things that are inside the building, inside the operation, are getting more money put to them. Cafeterias, swimming lessons, toy pool things, and other people are using them. And when they come in and they want to have their pool party there, hit them for them. That's when you charge them for it. If they want to have their sports carnival or they want to start water hockey, water polo, whatever it is, in the swimming pools, hit them. That's fine by me, but look, you can have it a different couple of models. You can have a certain particular time of the year of the day can be free, and then you can, on the outskirts of that, you can start charging people who are really, really keen to do lines and lanes and stuff like that. That's fine. I'm happy with that. I'll support that. But charging $2, $3 at the front door, no matter who you are, what time it is, whenever the pool's open, will just means that there won't be kids going to that swimming pool and they'll be doing stuff outside. Yeah, free for 18. I'll go with that too.
I think where we're at the moment is we need to come up with a compromise. Well, not a compromise, but we need to come up with some common ground on this. And I think, and I take Councillor Ham's comment, I think that's a fair and reasonable way to go forward, that children under a certain age are free. And if an adult accompanies them, there's a charge. I think that's fair and reasonable. It's not excluding one particular group from another, but it's still allowing our, and I pick up on what Councillor Hayes has said, you know, there's a lot more kids going there now than there were before. So let's come up with a compromise.
And we realised that we'd have to be paying somebody to stand there and collect the money. And the economics don't stack up as well. So you're paying somebody $30 an hour or more on weekends to stand there. And if it's a day like today, you won't have anyone coming through. So you've got to pay those extra people. So it's cost benefit analysis, isn't it? It's working out what the best thing is. I think we've come up with a perfect solution. The last 4 years, we've fine-tuned it and we've reduced hours in some pools, which you saw with that model that came through. And I'll speak to you later on that about some of that, how that was resolved. But as I said, I think you've got a perfect example of something that works. We've made it better than it was before, and it's being enjoyed by a lot of the community, and a lot of the community can't afford to use it if it costs money. So they're the people we want. We don't want kids in Tumut swimming in the Tumut River in the height of summer, because what we do know is the water is going fast, the river is full, and it is cold, and that is a risk, and that's a risk I'm not prepared to take with kids. So I just think this has come right at the 11th hour or even later, and it surprised me that it's come up, because I thought our fees and charges we were going to basically pass today. So it concerns me. As I said, I think we've got something that works. I think we should leave it as it is. Maybe we can workshop it and work out some of the logistics of doing it and what the costs are, how much it will cost to put somebody there to collect money for those hours that are there. I just don't think we should just make a decision today based on a whim.
Can I speak, please?
Councillor
Um,
Thompson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think what needs to happen is that we need to completely look at a new model. What we're trying to do is tweak this, that, and the other. The single most frequently made comment to me is the people who go down and use the pool for health and recreation, the lappers, have all said they're more than happy to pay a season ticket if they have a longer period of time between the pool closing. They get, I think, half an hour or 45 minutes or something without the rest of the pool there. They would be happy to pay their season tickets to be able to go there and have longer access, especially during summer. I have a great concern that at times the free pool is seen as free babysitting. I think there should be a minimum age for children who can attend the pool unattended by an adult, because I don't think that we should be putting that onus onto some of our younger lifeguards. And the other thing that I would look at maybe considering is having a period of time during the day that is free and accessible for students, whether it's after school hours, because that's one of the greatest costs, apart from your chemicals, is your staffing when nobody's using it. If you've got a pool that's open and you've got 2 people in there, that's not a free pool. That's paying a lot of money for someone to stand around and pick up no papers. So I think what we need to do is to actually look at a whole new model, to re-look at how do we generate some income, how do we provide people who want to do laps with appropriate pool time without everybody else in there, and how do we provide access for age groups, and how do we ensure that children under a certain age are not there unaccompanied by somebody who can supervise them, because our lifeguards are not there as babysitters or to supervise young children. They're there just to keep an eye on what's going on in the pool, and sometimes that's really difficult.
Look, I'm not going to die in a ditch over this. I just think it's an issue that needs to be addressed. And if it's done nothing else to bring it to the forefront, it suits me fine. Councillor Larter?
Well, look, I as one of the instigators this on the previous council, we came under a great deal of fire for doing this, and it was a very brave and bold move of those that sat around this table at the time to embrace this. And there was a number of reasons we did it, but essentially because it met with the government initiatives to provide participation, encourage young people to get active, which still is the mandate of the Premier for young people. There's opportunities in the city to go to pools, whether they be the water facilities at beaches with rock pools and the like, and lifeguards. They're all free of charge for those city kids to access. We did embark on a program with Surf Lifesaving New South Wales about having an arrangement where country kids and city kids swapped over, and James, in his capacity as the mayor, and I went to visit the general manager of Surf Lifesaving Australia in that capacity, and we spoke about a number of different initiatives, a bit like having a tidy town initiative that we could perhaps be incorporating with Surf Lifesaving a similar motive for people being able to do first aid and CPR and swim and all these sorts of crucial aspects to life going forward, because they were milestones that a lot of country kids don't meet. A lot of country kids haven't even seen water before they go to the city and go to the beach. So we've provided that. And it's been an absolute success. And I don't know why you'd want to look at destroying the model now. I mean, it's had a 4-year apprenticeship, and it's proven itself. It needs to be green lighted and given its wings. We let people into the library every day of the week for free, but we want to pick on people for using the pool. I mean, if someone wants to swim lanes, fair enough. Just rope it off, rope a couple of lanes off. It's not rocket science. We can look at all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, what's happened here is we've had an increase in income. We've had an increase in patronage, and not just an increase, a massive increase. And I think we're seeing the social benefit of that with our children and our older community as well, who are now using the pool. I don't know how many grandparents were put in a financial imposition when they had to go down to the pool and pay $3 to go and sit and watch their kid in the pool. Now you do that 5 days a week and it adds up when you're on a pension. It's not an easy thing. The thing we've got to realise here that is we start to collect money and we need to put somebody on the counter to do that. We've got a number of pools. That's a number of people that are not only now going to be re-engaged having to count $2 coins and accept people coming in and out, but they're now going to be taken away as a safety, because those people that are now collecting the $2 won't be at the poolside seeing whether the kids are drowning.
Quick question, how do we get the numbers going through? Do we have a beam that counts them as they go in and out?
We have through the mayor, we have a counter the same as the libraries. So we installed those a couple of years ago.
Do you wish to make a comment, Mr. CFO?
I'd like to just say a couple of things. Firstly,
I'd really like to hear what the CFO had to say.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I am not going to comment on a political
Right,
debate.
okay, fair enough, that's fine. Thought I'd give you the opportunity.
Firstly, lap swimmers can hire a lane if they want to, and they can use for after hours with their swipe card, and that's a privilege. So that's something that we did look at and has worked pretty well. There is a minimum age for entry to the pool, and that's obviously needs to be worked on. And there was one other thing, and I've lost it.
So what is the minimum age, James?
3 years.
And I take Councillor Hughes' point about you go to a sports oval for a sports carnival, there is a cost. So if a school goes to the pool for a sports swimming carnival, is there a cost? And if not, why not?
Paying $3 per person, per child, per year for the use of council facilities, right? Which was
That's if you're a school.
sorry?
That's if it's a school operation.
It's a school operation.
If it's a swim club, that should be charged. I mean,
Carnival should be charged.
carnival should be charged. Do water polo.
Just asking the question.
I think this comes down to ideology. We've got a business case. It works. Whoever doesn't like this, we could probably fiddle around with the edges. You know, the lap swimmers probably do need a bit more consideration in our plan. But is this just ideology?
Well, my point would be, we're sitting here avoiding the big topic here, which is the special rate variation, which is all about money and ratepayers' money, and we're still giving away user pay things.
It's not. It's making it more viable.
I think that we could argue that backwards and forwards.
No, the numbers are there.
Anyway, look, I've raised the issue.
Anyway.
There's been a debate about it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to get into the political debate, but I will just draw councillors' attention to the fact that as part of your delivery program, we are now obligated to undertake a service review every 12 months. We've set the program as being for next year libraries, the following year commercial works, and then pools. You have at your discretion the opportunity to rearrange the order of those service reviews if pools is something you'd like to interrogate in a shorter timeframe.
That would make sense.
Any other comments?
I'd just say that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
so rather than knee jerk, if we can.
Oh, look, I just raised the issue as far as a knee jerk reaction. I have raised it before, so right, you're well aware of it. And it probably doesn't fit into a different category to what the UN does. The outcomes are significantly different. I'll take that point, but the reality is that we're discussing it at this late hour. So if there's no further debate in the committee structure, I'll think someone to move that we go back into full council? Is there a mover?
We're not going to discuss the special rate variation.
That's the next,
Well,
that's
yeah,
the next one.
righto.
That's,
You're happy to do that? Righto, let's go to the next.
you'd rather
one then.
discuss it in the next one.
Right.
Well, I would have thought that we discussed the special rate variation in the next report, which is making the rates and charges.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's the forum I was talking, councillor.
I'm just keen.
I was just wondering whether how we exclude the,
Councillor Armour,
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just a bit confused at the moment. Are we discussing pools or are we discussing United Nations? Are we discussing the whole,
recommendation?
the whole recommendation for the IPNR documents?
IPNR documents, right?
Okay.
So
So-
fees and charges, the pools were part of the fees and charges. We've got the long-term financial plan, the workplace management strategy, and the strategic asset management plan as well to discuss if there's anybody wants to do any of those, the community strategic plan, the foreign delivery program. So they're all the ones that we're discussing.
From that perspective then, I wish to speak and I'm going, I mean, had I been in a normal corporate world, when we get to voting for the suite of documents, I probably would have abstained and given the reason why. That's not possible in a local government arena. If you abstain, then you also vote against. And therefore, there's no record of why I'm voting against, but I'm not really voting against. So therefore, I just want to put on the record that I am going to therefore abstain and vote against, and why that is, if that's okay. So that it is on the record in one way or another. So I wanted to record it on the records that I do not believe that at this particular point in time, I, as a new councillor, am in possession of all the information, nor that I am confident that I have all the information to make a judgment on the delivery and the financial documents specifically. The rest of it I can cope with. Nor do I therefore feel I understand all the information. So it's no reflection on anyone. It's me dealing with my issues. And I've spoken to our CEO about it. I've spoken to Shelley about it so that it's not misunderstood where I'm coming from. 5 months on, with all the goodwill in the world and hard work with local government finance courses applied for and cancelled through lack of interest, I find myself in a space where if I were to vote for it or against this group of documents, I feel I would break the promise I made during my election process of only making decisions when I personally felt comfortable that I had all the information and all the information that I was looking was correct, which actually the United Nations thing brought that back home as well. We need to learn a lot more. The financial figures provided in the delivery documents, when we look at the columns of staffing cost, equipment cost, depreciation, and then there comes that column of other expenses. It may be parks and gardens, governance and risk and leadership, depot and workshop, many of them, but in particular, I look at the waste services. Don't I?
No.
I just feel.
No, I don't think you need to. You've got an opinion and you've got the opportunity to vote accordingly. You don't have to explain yourself either to the community or to the rest of us. So yeah.
Well, I feel I owe it to that elected me, and as the CEO and I discussed yesterday, I can do that in a positive way or I can do that in a negative way. So if I just put it on the table then and not waste anybody's time and look even more stupid than other people might perceive I am.
I could be wrong, but it looks as though you've got.
No, I haven't, but that's okay.
Right.
You're making assumptions from over
No,
there.
okay, well, look,
So that's okay. Look, leave it at that. As you can probably hear, it's frustrating to learn. And I've availed myself of the training that is needed, so far not available. I always believe that 2 and 2 makes 4, no matter what. But a council set of accounts, it would appear, does not quite work that way. My vote is not going to change anything or the way or the other. I've also been told by a number of occasions that my abstaining means I'm voting against. So be it. I will confine my efforts to confirm my efforts to work through the figures and plans so next time I can debate them and vote with a clear understanding.
Councillor Larder.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to seek some clarification through the chair about how we proceed procedurally when we go back out. It's obviously two things that have been brought up, the UN and the pool structure. So I'm just wondering whether the mover and seconder might be happy to seek some guidance from the council as to what way they want to head, because, you know, we could end up with amendments or...
You need an amendment.
Councillor Ham, you had a comment? We're still in committee here.
I know. Because of that, I'm going to talk on fees and charges, and as it happens on children's services fees and charges. And just in case anyone missed it, $5 billion is going to be given to children's services over the next 5 years. And I cannot wait for the impact then when we sit here this time next year for, you know, Karkula and Cancoba and preschool, but particularly Puggles. And I think it will make Puggles a lot more accessible, cheaper for everyone, and it's just a really good thing.
Discussion.
You'll need an amendment going.
No.
The next.
We'll go back into, is there someone moved that we go back into council? Councillor Larder, seconded by Councillor Ham. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The question now is that the mover and seconder of the original motion, who were Councillor Larder and Councillor...
No, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Ham.
Sorry?
It's Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Larder and Councillor Livermore.
Sorry, Thompson.
Thompson, I moved.
That's my fault.
Oh, well, that's right.
I'll take that one.
Larder and Ham moved that they're going to committee.
Right. So we're now back into ordinary council, right? We have a motion that we adopt these. There has been suggestion of an amendment. Is there anyone wish to proceed with that?
Yeah, I'll move the amendment, which will be the same recommendation, but with a notation that we exclude reference to the United Nations. And I'll
Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Is there any debate on the amendment?
I think we've probably done most of that. Councillor.
Sorry?
I was just wondering whether Councillor Amor would feel more comfortable if we went through and moved each separately. There's some you might want to vote for.
Oh, I indicated the ones that I
that's what I thought.
comfortable with voting with, but that doesn't matter.
We're just moving the amendment, which is the exclusion of the UN, right?
Yep.
Right. So once we've dealt with that, we're then back into the full motion, right? And then Councillor Amor has an opportunity to express her concerns there, right? So is there any debate regarding the exclusion of the UN proposal within the IPNR documentation?
Do you want me to just read that out?
Yes, if you wish.
So the resolution part 2, section 1 will now state the community strategic plan towards 2042 with the exclusion of the reference to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we will make those amendments administratively after the meeting.
Is there any discussion regarding the wording of that resolution? If not, I'll put the motion, the amendment, I should say.
So I'm assuming that includes all parts 1, 2, and all the subsections, just with that one change to it. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4, with only the change to 2, part 1.
No. My understanding is that we now have an amendment, right?
Yes.
The amendment is that we exclude from the document, right? So what you're saying then, my understanding is that the amendment is just amending the original motion with that exclusion rather than...
So
yes, but we
just
moved
for clarity, so we're moving that Councillor Hayes, second by Councillor Larder, is 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is that
with the
correct?
addition to 2, 1 saying the exclusion.
That's correct.
Is that the way you understand?
Yep, that's
right. Okay, now, is there any, if you wish to debate the issue, Councillor Armour, this is your opportunity. So if there's no further discussion.
And if Councillor Hayes is happy with it, I'm happy for them to be put individually if that suits Councillor Armour, but it's up to Councillor.
Thank you, John. It'll make no difference. It's fine.
I think we'll move the amendment first.
Right. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That's
Against.
Councillor Hughes and Councillor Thompson.
Sorry, and
Nobody else. There's only two against.
councillor, just on the motion, you're in favour of it.
You're in favour of the
Taking the
amendment.
Amendment.
It's only the
The
amendment.
amendment, yes, I'm fine.
Okay, right, good, yep. So it's 2 against. The amendment is the motion.
7-4. Righto. So the next procedure is that with that amendment,
Amendment is the motion. Yep.
and then it comes to motion. Is there any debate on the motion now at this point in time? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against?
Oh, sure, sorry, what are we doing?
So you actually
Yeah,
We've done the UN thing.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah,
So
but it
that
included
we've
all
taken
four.
that out. That
Okay,
was
so-
the amended motion.
Okay, so that passed.
That's right. That
Right, so
passed.
yes, 4.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
So you're now you get to that amendment becomes the motion. Now you're voting. So theoretically,
4.
you're for. Right. So there's one against. Is that correct? Right. Okay.
Just one, just
Councillor
councillor
is
Armour.
against.
So, next
Councillor
councillor.
Armour
I'm
against.
totally lost now.
I was
I
against.
thought we were voting for the whole thing.
Sorry, what
We
was
are.
that?
We
Yes,
are.
we are.
All the,
Yeah.
then I'm against, and I'm the
Okay.
only one I know.
No.
No, you're
No,
not.
no,
Councillor
Thompson's
Thompson's
with you.
against.
Oh, okay.
Right.
You got a
That's
buddy.
the beauty
So-
of democracy.
So now we have 2 against, Councillor Armour and Councillor Thompson. The rest are in favour of the amended motion. Right, right, okay. 10-2. Making of the rate. Right? There's some recommendations there,
Never lost them.
a lot of them, right? And we need to go through. I thought there was some where there was a need to read them out after they've been determined. Is that correct?
No, only if they're in confidential.
So 1 to 11.
So do you wish to deal with them one at a time,
We can't.
or you?
No.
We need to.
I
move something
don't think you
before we
can, but
start.
you know, it's up for council to make a decision here. Is there?
I think we should go into committee.
Sorry.
We need to move
We've
something.
moved.
Oh, you
Well, you got to
mean-
move.
oh, right.
So you
I
want to
beg your pardon.
move?
I'm happy to move.
Councillor Arter, is there a seconder? Councillor Hand. No, I won't. We now have a motion. Does someone wish to move to go into committee?
I do.
Councillor Ham, the seconder. Councillor Hayes. Righto, any discussion on all the 11 recommendations?
Well, I'd like to start the discussion about the special rate variation. And I would like to bring up a letter that was in the paper yesterday by Doug G, who obviously felt passionate enough to write to the paper, and thank Doug for his time. But he did make some allegations in there that I found quite disturbing, that we are doing a special rate variation to actually pocket in 10 years' time $31 million. And it will be just sitting there pocketed away. And I know that's not the case, but that's now been written in the paper. I would really like for you, Mr. Mayor, if the CFO can explain why that can be interpreted that way, but that is not actually the case.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that argument was brought forward in the IPNR suite submissions as well, and it is addressed in that report. Essentially, what was it, Mr. G?
Mr. G.
Yeah, alluded to was that we're doing a cash accounting 10-year forecast, which is not actually the case. We do accrual accounting, and therefore the cash position is increasing because of asset replacement reserves. Sorry,
So simplistically, to me, that you know, our big one of the main reasons we're getting SRV is because of the depreciation and basically the maintenance and repairs on everything. However, that's not actually written into the accrual accounting. Is that my understanding?
So Mr. Mayor, that is to a degree correct. Yes, what we are doing is trying to bring council's profit and loss back to a neutral position.
Yeah.
So not continuing with losses. That is not necessarily what the cash position will say, because cash position is different to the accrual position. If we do not spend the cash in a particular year, it will go into a reserve and will be used for the maintenance of assets. Essentially, the special rate variation has been asked for to maintain existing services to the community and not to amass cash in any sense.
And on that, okay, it's not scaremongering, but there has been a lot of worries within the committee, within the community about all these sale of assets and offloading all these assets. Some of them even break even. So with this special rate variation, is that going to be the end of that discussion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it has always been made clear that this is only part of the solution.
Right.
The special rate variation is not magically taking away all the problems. So there will have to be further savings that council will have to enact over the next 10 years. Where they come from is obviously up to council and the community to decide.
Thank you.
I think you also need to realise that the long-term financial plan is predicated on another 17.5% special rate variation next year.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we're looking at 15.7%, 15 as special rate variation, 0.7 by the rate peg exercise. As to what happens next year, who would know?
Yeah.
And whether those long-term financial projections are correct.
Things are changing very rapidly.
Also, so look, I read the article too, and I can see, I know where the figures came from, and those figures are right if you look at the long-term financial plan. However, that makes a lot of assumptions that we're not going to do anything in the next 10 years. We're going to go ahead with this SRV next year and maintain the status quo. Well, I don't think, let's face the issues we've already faced in this last 6 months are quite significant. So anyway, that answers your question. Any other questions in this committee of the whole exercise or exercise?
I'll just make another statement, if I may, that I don't see, and this goes back to the first meeting we had, I don't see this special rate variation as anything more than a merger tax, as I said before. I think it's a direct result of the inefficiencies that came about and the pay rises that came about through being merged. I think it relates back to the fact that we didn't do enough when we were in our previous councils to stop it. I do note that the former Mayor of Carrithwil picked up an Order of Australia for his work in defeating a merger process, and I wish him well and wonder what might have been here. But you know, this is a merger tax. That's what it is. It's not a result of all the new things we've got. I think it's a result of bad management, and when we as a council have to deal with it, and you know, it all goes back to the state government, and you know, they're the ones that put us in this situation, and we're the ones who are having to put up with this and having to deal with the public and deal with letters to the editor and deal with cranky people. And I just don't think it's fair on us as councillors. I don't think it's fair on the ratepayers that they have to pay these extra rates. I just think it's despicable what happened to the former Tumut Council and Tumbarumba Council.
Well, I agree with those. That's for sure. But look, let's face it. The hole that we're trying to fill in at this point in time has been caused. Getting back to your comment about the largesse of government in in throwing good money after bad, constantly throwing good money after bad, because it was a bad decision in the first place, and at every bend in the road they've made an attempt to buy the heart and soul of the people impacted on it, and that hasn't worked. And of course, that intrinsically has brought with it a huge escalation in the recurrent costs of the council. And whilst the community probably get that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling in seeing all these wonderful new assets that the community has, there's a cost associated with them. And I think, to be quite honest, the way forward is to consolidate what we've got out and grabbing everything else that comes our way. Because unless the community can afford it, and that's what the problem is they've all of a sudden been confronted with the realisation that whilst the money was free, the ongoing costs aren't.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think that's the real issue. I think the real issue is government cost shifting. There is a certain amount of depreciation, but I think that can be handled and managed. And I think the council did a very good job in doing that. It's the things that we weren't in charge of that caused us the issues, and that is increasing salary costs and inability to reduce staffing numbers at times in some areas. And I think that's the issue. And I don't mean any disrespect to staff, because they do a wonderful job. But we have these issues, and that's what it is. Like the former Tumbarumba Council, their salary bill was 166% of their rates income, and now I think we're even in a worse situation. So these are the issues that we've got that we need to resolve. I don't think it's we can't just say it's depreciation. It's lots of things, but particularly it's government cost shifting, and it's the government that got us into this issue, into this position, and they basically walked away from us. Not only have they walked away from us, they've also given us extra costs, and that's my beef.
Look, I think you need to realise that both two grant applications that were successful added 10% to the special rate variation, right? Both the evacuation centre and the airstrip added 10% to the rate base. Actually, it added 12% to the rate base by way of recurrent costs associated with both of those projects. And if I remember correctly, Snowy Valleys Council gave a presentation in April of last year saying that special rate variation was to be 24%. It is now 36%, primarily because of those two grant acceptances. So I think we need to put it into perspective. It's very easy. And if you look at the merger proposal, it was identified in the merger documentation that if the salaries of the Tumbarumba staff were to escalate to the same costs associated with Tumut, we would add an extra $1.1 million to the staff costs. So all these issues were identified prior to merger. The government chose to ignore them, and what we have today is a result of that ignorance, for want of a better term.
Not only did they choose to ignore them, we got them wrong because
they got them wrong. There's no risk in the world.
The salary increase was 4 times that much.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, right, any other discussions? So getting back to your concern about Mr. G's comments, which are correct if you apply them in fine detail, that's what the long-term financial plan shows. There's a surplus of $31.5 million at the end of 10 years. Right?
How could that be correct if he's accusing us of pocketing $30 million and he's using a wrong accounting system?
Sorry?
How could that be correct if is that right, what he said?
Oh, no, I think...
And it's been interpreted, from my understanding, it's just been interpreted without using accrual and without doing any repairs and maintenance on our
Well, he's
assets.
comparing apples with watermelons, isn't he? I mean,
it's not factually correct if you compare it to the accounting standard.
That's right.
That's right. And look, local government accounting is an art in itself. Am I correct?
I rest my case. And we need to communicate much better with the community so they get a much better understanding that it isn't the same as your basic, even my $10 million business accounting. And that is what I'm having trouble coming to terms with, and that's
It's
the
very
message I was
You
trying
can't
to get
apply the
across.
same value.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, the CEO yesterday, when he was speaking with me, actually made a suggestion, and I can't reword it. Can you reword it about having the person, you name the person to present a kitchen bench presentation of the accounting that you were aware of. So could you leave that name and address, please, before you leave? Thank you.
I'd like to move that we go back into council.
I have been moved. Is there a seconder? Moved by councillor Thompson, seconded by councillor Rival. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Righto.
So there,
You want to move?
no, it's
debate?
already moved and
If it's
seconded.
already been moved and seconded, is there any debate on the motion?
Did you get who that?
Or 11.
Sorry?
It's 11 recommendations.
That we just moved out of committee then, so, yeah.
So we're now back into council. We're debating the motion, right? If there's no further, is there anyone for or against? If there's no one for or against, I'll put the motion. And that's the adoption of all 11 points. Is everybody conversant with that? No?
Yeah.
No further debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously.
No, James.
Sorry,
James.
councillor Hayes. My apologies.
10.3.
I lose.
Righto. 10.3,
I'll move the recommendations.
been moved by councillor Thompson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ham. Any debate?
Can I just
You can ask a question.
seek some clarification through the general manager to the staff member, just in relation to the requirements for DAs for things like coffee vans, just so that there's an understanding for the broader community.
Through the mayor. So obviously, in relation to coffee vans and mobile food vendors, essentially, if someone's looking to set up on private land, so that's a permanent establishment in someone's front yard or some other private land, that will require a development application. In the instance where someone wants to set up a mobile food van or other vending on public land or a road-related area, or if it's a mobile van that goes around servicing businesses, that's a one-off Section 68 approval for engage a business or trade.
Thank you.
And that's on an annual basis, or as long as.
Look, it's done on a 3-year basis,
Right.
but we do inspect those vans on an annual basis.
Very good. Thank you for that clarification. Been moved and did we have a second? We did.
I did, yes, Thompson and Ham.
That's right. Any further debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
As James is still not in the room.
Against? Carried. Unanimously. Righto. That was 10.4, is that correct?
We're up to 10.4.
Investments, any questions? Someone move? Councillor Ham, is there a seconder? Councillor Thompson. Any discussion, any questions? Councillor Ham?
Yeah, I just, if through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could talk to the CFO about the movement of 1.5 million, where's it gone? And also I'd like your insights into what's happening with the interest rates and how that's going to affect us and the bottom line for Snowy Valleys.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the cash reduction of $1.5 million in short-term cash is balanced out by a $1 million investment in long-term cash.
Okay, so one went into the NAB.
Yeah, and the difference is purely operational cash being used to run our operations through the months. Cash holdings obviously fluctuate depending on how many bills we pay in a particular month, what is coming in. Rates, for example, come in quarterly.
Yeah.
It's not regularly through the year. So the fluctuation is purely operational.
Right.
As for interest rates, we have noticed a considerable uptick in even below 12 months interest rate offerings from the banks and other investment houses, which is not surprising given the current economic climate. It will certainly assist council with additional cash inflow because we will be able to have a higher return on our investments.
Unfortunately, everything else is going up at the same time too.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, it's an unfortunate combination that inflation is rising while interest rates are actually not rising at the same rate as inflation.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, I'll think well, we've got the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 10.5. Been moved by Councillor Ham. Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion?
I just want to support the Hine Community Foundation's recommendation to have Mary and Chaffey to be the representative.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
If he's happy.
It's never happy.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'll wear that.
Sorry.
The microphones are very clear here.
Yes.
Yeah, look, unreserved apology for that comment. Mr. Mayor.
Righto, okay. I'll put the motion. If there's no further debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. 10.6.
I'll move.
11.1 actually.
11.1. We've already done 11.1.
Yep, that's been done. Move to 11.2.
No, we haven't done
No, we
that.
haven't.
Sorry,
No,
11.4 it was that we did
That
before.
was the micro distillery
yeah,
got moved
Which was
forward.
number 11.4. See?
Yep,
Close.
11.4.
So we've got 11.1.
Now, this is the vacant land. Is there a
I'll move the
mover?
recommendations.
Yeah,
There are 7.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Livermore. I believe, is there an issue with this?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through you, item 2, which refers to the registering of easements for access over lot 3. First lot it favours lot 2. It's listed there as DP 108837. I believe that might be missing a digit. So I would ask that that we could move the that DP being corrected to identify the correct parcel of land.
Mr. Osland, would
Ye-
you
yes,
care
Mr. Mayor.
to correct that?
Yes, I would. Thank you for the opportunity. I did double check that during the break, and the correct DP should be on recommendation 2. It is lot 2, DP 1088-037. There was a 0 missed out.
That's a start.
I'm happy with that amendment.
You have the mover and the second are happy with that amendment?
Yeah.
Is there any further debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And that's a issue. We're now into 11.2. Parcel road closure and sale. Batlow. Is there a mover?
Oh,
Councillor Larder, seconded by Councillor Livermore. Is there any debate? No debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 11.3.
Move 1 and 3.
Move 1 of 3, is that correct?
1 and 3.
Is there a seconder for
second
1 of
that.
3? Seconded by councillor Thompson, moved by councillor Hayes, seconded by councillor Thompson.
Hello?
Any debate on that? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against?
Move that we're going to committee.
Move that we go into
That-
committee by councillor Thompson, seconded by councillor Ham.
We'll just open. We've got to move and motion.
All those in favour?
Can we just,
Against?
Hold on a tick.
Let's
So we've
clarify
got
that.
Hayes
Find
and
out.
Thompson moving
Just one and
recommendation
three.
Receive the
one.
recommendation, receive the report.
Receive.
Just 1 and 3, wasn't it?
1 and 3.
1 and 3.
3? Did you say 3? I apologise.
Just 1 and 3.
1 and 3.
So they become 1 and 2.
Yeah.
No, not 2.
1 in 3. Moved and seconded and carried, right?
Unanimously.
No, just keeps
Unanimously.
wanting to do it.
Been now moved that we go into committee by councillor Thompson and seconded by councillor Ham.
So you,
Is that
if
right?
you've carried that, you need something else before you go into committee.
Need to.
If you've carried that 1 and 3, you don't have anything on the books to go into committee about, so you need to move something.
You put the motion, we voted on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're done.
We're done. So then we go to
We've
number
voted.
2.
Yeah, we voted.
so someone needs to move 2 if you want to have a discussion or something else.
Happy to move 2.
Councillor Ham is happy to move 2. Is there a seconder?
Just
Councillor
give them need to talk.
I'll put the no, I won't.
No.
No.
I've got a motion mover and a seconder. Does somebody want to move to go into committee, or do you? Been moved by councillor Hughes, seconded by councillor Ham. That we go into committee. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right. We're in committee now. Does anybody wish to speak to
Look, I'll speak.
item 2?
I'll speak. Given that we've moved 1 and 3, and 3 says to commence appropriate investigation of the most suitable footprint. If you'd moved 1 and 2, you've already identified the footprint, I would imagine.
No.
So it doesn't really make sense. You just
No, because we've left number 2 out. That's what we're voting on at the moment. Or that's what
My
we've got.
understanding is the reason that 2 is being put up is that there's possibility, if we're going to go down the path of investigation, do we do that by way of committee? Do we do that by identifying alternative sites other than Alfred Street in Tumbarumba? You know, there is the potential of the cannery at site at Batlow. Do we want to discuss the discussions we had this morning with Transgrid regarding what they intend to do by way of utilising the resources of Snowy Valleys Council for the long-term construction process? There's a whole raft of propositions there that we could address, and I personally believe that we should establish a working group to investigate the suitable footprints and other issues confronting, or that we will confront by virtue of Transgrid's involvement in our local government area over the next 3 years.
Could I?
John? Councillor Latta, my apologies.
You're right, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm not even sure why Transgrid are even asking us or consulting with us about this. You know, they seem good at telling us how to conduct their business in our town everywhere else. So, I mean, why don't they just maybe take back a few people's houses, and
Look,
kick a few residents out,
I hear what you're saying. We're in a golden opportunity to.
Well, that's why I think
ensure
they should hear, why does Snowy Hydro and Transgrid just think that they can come in and tear this community apart by putting all their power lines in and then expect that we're going to accommodate them, just so they can bring the bulldozers in and all these high wire tension things. These people have got to be joked, haven't they? I mean, who do they think they are? I tell you what, they're in for a shock. They're in for a big shock because this community's had enough of this garbage. And, they think, they could come in and just railroad us and bulldoze everything down and do whatever they like. Well,
Councillor Ham?
Just a point of clarification, and I did write to the CEO about this. I find this report a little bit confusing because to me, the Transgrid accommodation is really about the Transgrid substation being built at Mayoral and the workers needed for that. Is that, to clarify, can someone clarify, is that the case?
Well, we asked that question this morning. I don't know whether you were online at that time.
But I'm just.
Why they made a comment, if my memory serves me correctly, of 250 people over 2.5 years.
200.
But, right.
200, then it became 200. So it's, it was a variable feast.
Yep.
So
it's all about the substation, though, isn't it?
No,
the
it's
accommodation.
about directing the power lines.
360 kilometres.
360 k's they identified.
So the power lines that they're wanting, for me, the reason that I understood that that the accommodation was in Tumbarumba was to build the substation at Mayoral.
It requires 50
but surely
people
if they
being
want
built
to,
by a mob called UGL. I think.
UGL, yep. But surely the power line situation is a different argument because if you need, like, why the power lines, not much of it is in Tumbarumba. It's more around Tumut and going towards Yass and Barnaby. So are you going to accommodate people
Well, this
in
comes back
Tumbarumba
to someone telling us what their presentation was and why they've selected Tumbarumba as a potential site for 200 people for 2.5 years. I think the report actually mentioned something about 10 heavy vehicles overnight and 100 vehicles overnight. So who actually spoke to these people?
Through the chair, Mr. Wilton spoke with the.
And Mr. McGrath.
Oh, was it Glenn? Was it? Sorry.
Because really, I mean, as we said this morning, we're really, really upset with Transgrid, and now they want to work in our backyard.
Well, that's the way corporate Australia operates.
Yeah. So what I'm leading to is, yes, we do have a lot of issues with the power lines. We have a lot of upset ratepayers, and I think we need a delegation to go down and just sit outside Matt Kean's office and just say we're being, I hate to say it, John, but I have to agree with you. We are not being treated fairly in this instance.
So
Pretty cold.
let's just look at this in cold, hard facts here. There are a number of issues. One is, what is council's involvement with Transgrid? On a one-to-one basis, and they've approached us regarding accommodation. Our other involvement is via representation on behalf of the community in the way the community is being, and the wider community, not just those immediately impacted, but the wider community is impacted by their what's name. So there's two roles here.
That's yeah.
So from my point of view, it's first of all, I can't understand, in light of the presentation this morning, why they want to be in Tumbarumba for 2.5 years. Is that my interpretation of correct of what they said? 2.5 years?
Yep.
200 people?
Yeah, I think.
Started off at 250, it ended up at 200. 100 motor vehicles and 10 heavy vehicles.
It does not make sense.
Can I just make a comment, please? Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we remove Transgrid from the equation, my concern is also if you're going to bring in a huge population growth onto any community, whether that be, because there were 3 sites identified and it came down to 1. So originally there were 3 different sites considered, and then the area at Outford Street, Tumbarumba, was actually the one that I think staff have identified. The concern that I have is that irrespective of whether it's Transgrid or any other organisation, to increase your population by that many in such a short time, the impact on the community, do we understand what the impact on the community will be? How is the business going to cope? And then you create a false economy over that short period of time, and then you suddenly just take it all away. So I've got many issues of concern, not just with Transgrid. do we look at having 3 sites? Do we ask them to actually, if it was, as I said, removing Transgrid, but do we look at putting it across 3 sites, having a least impact on those 3 areas? I just have a great concern that the impact on the infrastructure within those communities, overnight increasing the population, if it went to Batlow, it would be increasing the population by almost 10% in one hit. So, I have the concerns, and yes, I too am not happy with Transgrid, but I think we also need to show a level of respect at the level of government that we are at, and that we need to actually engage in proper communications with them and understand fully what they're saying. And I don't think we've left them in any doubt as to how we're thinking or how we feel, but I still think that there needs to be a level of protocol and a level of respect.
Righto, so look, the big issue is I don't think they know what they actually want or where they actually want it, right? I think that the ramifications of what's being proposed here in the short term, e.g. bringing 200 people into a community and whether they can support it, what they anticipate or what they want by way of delivery of accommodation and facilities, and what the legacy is going to be. These are all issues that we've got to discuss in detail before we even embark upon saying, well, we've got a site. What actually do they want? How long do they want it for? How do they intend to operate it? All these things are issues that, and look, we as a council can't meet on a regular basis to discuss this with them. I think the only way we can bring this forward is to have a committee established or a working group established that will deal with these issues on a as needs basis, and that might be 1 or 2 times or 3 times a week in the initial stages till we get a full understanding of what the issues are, and then be in a position to advance it forward or reject it. Councillor Larter?
I was just going to say, Mr. Mayor, I don't think I don't completely agree with Councillor Thompson's sentiments. I think the business owners around town would be certainly very happy to accommodate an extra 200 workers, but I think the main issue is accommodation, because we find that essential services, even if we take nursing or anything, we can't find accommodation.
Can we cope? Can the town?
And secondly, do we really want to be giving a green light to Transgrid to bring an operation here to build all these infrastructure projects that we don't want?
Well, that depends on the decision they make. If they go underground, I'd say, probably we do. So, it's a chicken and the egg theory here.
Excuse me, Councillor Hughes has been trying for a while.
Look,
just saying.
Thank you very much for your assistance.
I could sit closer.
Councillor Livermore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I hear what's being said, and look, you're right, Councillor Larder. We have an influx of a couple of hundred fruit pickers in Tumbarumba over several months every year. And that's a great bonus for local businesses. It's a bit of an impediment on the swimming pool usage, but we won't go to that.
And the car parking.
The other issue is, in terms of accommodation, and I agree with the idea that we need some sort of a working party to actually get all the information that is required from Transgrid or QMlink, whoever. We then need to be able to turn that into an opportunity rather than an impediment. Now, without giving too much away, I can see there's a lot of opportunities there where the council and the community could benefit. It will mean things like probably land rezonings and so on. Okay, now, depending on what sort of accommodation they're after, we just can't necessarily go to a site and say, right, we'll put 40 cabins or you can put 40 cabins. My thinking of this is they pay for all the infrastructure that's necessary, but we want something that when their project's over and they go, we've got infrastructure there that is ready to be used by the community, that council then doesn't have to provide. So there's probably opportunities there. I see that one of the big issues is this conflict between the way they're going about, with the wires and the
process.
the transmission lines and the angst that's causing the community. Now, there may also be opportunities here to use that as a bit of leverage. To say, well, if you want your people to live in cabins and not camping in tents up at McPherson's Plain or wherever, here's some of the other sides of the things that you're going to have to agree to. So, and there's an awful lot of detail that are fleshed out there, an awful lot of detail. And I don't think you can sort of sit around the table here today and come up with a definitive answer. And I think the working group idea really is the way to go about that.
Councillor Hughes, did you wish to?
Thank you, Chair. Look, as I'm speaking on Batlow's position, is like it's not unusual. We've had 200 people crawling all over Batlow in 2020 winter, and it was accommodated. It is a small industrial working town without a industry at the moment. So Batlow is accommodatable, but it is a 300 kilometre or so stretch of poles and wires, all underground. They're going to need we're not debating if they're going to put it through the area, we're debating on how they're going to put it through the area. So they're going to need accommodation, they're going to need housing, no matter unless they do it by, something we don't know about, they're going to need accommodation in places like this. So it's not an if, it's a when, it's a how. So I'm in favour of having them staggered across the community. If that's what they want, they're probably going to want something more centralised.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it is a question of how much can each community withstand. But at the same time, we were talking to the governor the other day and saying how hard it is to get workers in town. We've got the work, we don't have the accommodation, and now we're worrying about how much accommodation we're going to get from these guys. Take it when you get it, sort of thing. So if the first thing that they want to do is say, we want to put all these accommodation and all these places here for 3 years, and you can keep the infrastructure after we're gone. That's the deal, isn't it?
Well, is it? Or is that being suggested?
That's a suggestion.
That's right.
And we're complaining about accommodation, that we can't get the skills to house people. I can't see how this is.
So
we're arguing here.
I think Mick wants to speak here.
I've got another perspective on that. If they need accommodation for 200 people, and as most have said today, 200 people to absorb into a community isn't huge. It's going to be a short-term benefit to those communities, but there's nothing to stop Transgrid putting in a mining camp, putting the infrastructure in to accommodate those people for the period that they'll be there. And we say to them, when you leave, you take that with you, you clean up the site, you restore it, because we don't want that in the future to be something that we have to pay for, or something that comes onto council's books that we don't really need.
But
you use it.
That's why we need
you take it, you restore
it. All these
simple
issues, right?
Simple.
Because there are that many of them. This is not a simple thing of saying, yes, come here and do whatever you like.
No.
This is a fact.
Mining camps get built all over Australia every single day. And there's nothing to stop these people from doing that.
Sites.
That's right. We've got one in Tumbarumba.
Exactly. Take it with you when you leave.
Well, we took it to Tumbarumba, but that's another story. My issue is that Alfred Street is perfect for lifestyle blocks. And if you put something like this,
rural residential.
Yeah, are you going to make a mess of that and then create an?
Well, it depends on how you lay it out.
Does,
right?
It does. But then again, if you put it there or you put it in Batlow, you might have something that's an asset that you can sell into the future. So
Batlow is no different. It depends on how you set it up. Getting back to,
don't we decide how they set it up?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So we've got to be, it's not just us going out and saying we think it's a wonderful idea, go and do what you want to. We want to get the best out. If they're going to come here, we want to get the best out, long-term outcome we can possibly get out of it. And that if that means they've got to develop it or plan it in a certain way or go to a particular area, well, so be it. However, the time frame is rather short. Didn't they say they were going to start in 2024?
Have they given you a figure of what they're prepared to spend?
No, they've given us nothing.
No.
What have they
That's the
given
point.
us?
Page 58.
I'll tell you what they've given me.
24, they don't
I
even
don't
know
really
the
share
bill.
it with everyone, yeah. Annoying.
It's got hairs on it.
Where can you
So,
say
you
you're
know,
starting? in
how are we going to
2024?
deal with these people on a regular basis?
I think the word regulars, that like, we
the
can't, they
senior
can't
council.
just jump in and out every 6 months.
That's
We
right.
need to be meeting with them weekly and finding out what's happening.
So we can see the new people coming along. Because they keep changing.
Well, you know why?
No, I don't.
Oh,
So we can be giving them.
But I think probably we've gone along far enough here. I think we just need to decide whether you want a group of people who will workshop the whole setup and then come back to us and report, because otherwise we're just
I agree.
starting to go around circles now.
I
I didn't take the tablets this morning.
vote to go out. of
Councillor
committee.
Hughes.
I vote to go out of committee.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded that we go out of committee. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We're back in there.
Thompson.
Type 2, what are we going to do with the motion that we have now?
To amend it, because we
Well,
haven't
who-
amended
Could we
who's
put an
got
amendment to defer and create a working group?
Well, you could amend that to say that we establish a working group to
Isn't that
engage in
completely-
discussions with Transgrid as to what
I
they
don't think it's
actually want.
illegal.
And then, you know,
I don't think you can. I
sorry?
think it's got to be similar.
If I may, through the mayor, just let this one lapse and then move a new motion about setting up a working group. It's a lot cleaner. Yeah.
Okay.
If the mover and seconder want to
Yep.
go that way. Yeah.
So you're happy to let it lapse? So now we're going to move well, I'm not sure that procedurally you can do that.
Yes, we can.
You can withdraw it if you want.
Well, you can
Lapse
withdraw
with
it. There's no problem there, but how are you going to move another motion?
Because the report's before
You've
us.
still got a report there.
Right, okay,
It's a
fair
matter
enough.
of moving a recommendation.
Mover and
Righto.
seconder like to withdraw.
Mover and seconder withdraw,
Yes,
right?
thank you.
Right. Is there a mover for another motion? What are you moving?
That
Working
we,
group.
that we
Establish
a working group that meets on a regular basis with Transgrid to establish an accommodation facility for their incoming workers.
or to identify their needs and location. How about something to that effect?
Does it only need to be accommodation?
At this stage.
Their
because that's what
needs,
our
I said
report is.
needs and accommodation. No, needs and
Accommodation.
location.
facilities,
Their accommodation needs.
because they have a parking need as well. It's not just.
So needs in the broadest possible and location. So, because, you know, maybe there's a benefit to locating it over a wider area. Maybe there's no
Establish
benefit.
a working group.
We don't want to
on-
go down that
Work
path.
with Transgrid to establish their accommodation, their needs and accommodation.
Just
Do
working
we-
group that meets on a regular basis.
On a yeah.
Can you make a reference to the establishment?
Long way away.
And
And
Sue's
then
going
we
to
go
Roy
say-
and I have done
Roll
good
into
in.
rubbish.
That is probably my upper limit.
If I may, through the chair, we've just added in there that we establish a terms of reference
Yes.
under our governance guidelines.
Two.
If the mover and seconder are happy for that to be added in.
So what's the complexion of the working group? Are we going to?
That will be established in the
later.
terms of reference.
Righto, okay, righto. Okay, is there any, councillor Lata?
Can I just say that, I think that this matter is so significant and so important to not only us, but the community, that Transgrid should realistically be setting aside at least 30 minutes on each meeting council day for their CEO to work with the council and the senior staff. We should be setting aside at least 30 minutes every council meeting during the day to get an update from them, find out what's going on, so that working group can actually work. because otherwise we don't know what's going on. They're not committed to anything.
We got a mover. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Thompson, we have a seconder. Any further additions or amendments to the proposed, Councillor Ham?
Sorry, I'm not sure how this works with the meeting procedures, but I do think that we do need to talk to the minister about this. Can we add to the report that we have a delegation go to Sydney?
If I may, through the mayor, you can decide to have a delegation. You don't need to necessarily resolve to do that. So you've got a resolution on the books already.
Right.
The
Okay.
mayor can take whoever to meet with the minister whenever that suits.
Terrific, thank you.
Right, so we need to organise a meeting. Right, any further additions or whatever to the resolution that we have in front of us?
It's very small writing, councillors, but it says to establish a working group with relevant terms of reference that meets on a regular basis to work with Transgrid to establish their needs and accommodation locations. With an S.
Can I ask that we put in that meets with Transgrid on a regular basis?
And you want,
Do you want meets
make
or
better sense?
communicates? Because you want a face-to-face meeting or a Zoom meeting or?
Or whatever's
Oh.
appropriate.
I would see it like our airport project group. Each council meeting, they give us a presentation of where it's up to, what we need to consider.
through the chair, we'll come back and present you a draft terms of reference that you can work out the detail around that, but we'll take that information to base the terms of reference on. So now it says to establish a working group with the relevant terms of reference that meets with Transgrid on a regular basis to establish their needs and accommodation locations.
Thank you. Says established twice.
Like, I don't want to,
Establish.
needs, it probably covers a broad enough principle. I just don't want to constrain by the
To
words.
determine their
Should go
needs.
across all. Okay, everybody happy with that? We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Right. We're up to 11:05, are we?
11.
Yeah.
Oh, we're done.
Gone to sleep.
Move all four.
11.5.
Yep.
Move. Councillor Ham, seconded. Councillor Ivel. Any discussion?
Just a query through you,
Councillor
Mr.
Thompson.
Mayor. The inclusion of the policy that identifies the payment of our elders in relation to doing welcomes to country or smoking ceremonies.
I'm just going to make some reference to it, I think. Was that it?
Yes.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we can include that as an amendment to the document before it goes on
Thank
public
you.
exhibition if everyone's in agreement.
Thank you.
Righto, no further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. 11.6.
I'll move all 5 recommendations.
Moved by Councillor Thompson. 11.6.
Second.
Disability inclusion action, seconded. Councillor Ivel. Is there any debate? Any discussion?
Just,
Councillor.
I would
Thompson.
like to acknowledge the amount of work that's been done in preparing this, but also to remind people how important it is. The inclusion, the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, unfortunately, a lot of disabilities are not visual ones. You can't see everybody's disability. And so what's been put into this plan and is actually about inclusion across all people who have disability. And so acknowledging the way that it's been prepared, but also encourage the community as a whole to actually go in and have a look. And if they feel that there's any need for change, because the exhibition period is the time for people, if they feel that there's something in there that they're not overly comfortable with, or if they feel that there is something that's been missed, that's the time. So I would encourage all members of the community to read it and to actually put any submissions that they feel may be appropriate.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. (11.7) Riverina Regional Library Deed of Agreement, moved by Councillor Ham. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ivell, do you wish to speak to it?
I will speak on this because I'm the council representative on it. I will say that I am disappointed that Wagga decided to go off on their own. However, they have, and there are going to be ramifications within our council area because of that. You know, just changes of library cards, frequency maybe of the mobile library. However, I have to compliment the Riverina Regional Library Committee, how well they are, to me, thinking through how it's going to work. They have a new council is also coming on board as well. And at the moment, it seems fairly seamless because there is a lot of problem solving going on behind the scenes. So congratulations to them. We're all meeting in Wagga next Friday on the 24th to actually, you know, now the deeds of agreements are being signed from the 1st of July, just to nut out exactly what it means for this area.
Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. (12.1) Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. Is there a mover? Councillor Livermore, a seconder. Councillor Ham. Any discussions on items in the report? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. (12.2) Local Traffic Committee, moved by Councillor Hayes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ivell. Any discussion? Any items? Councillor Thompson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a query in the actual minutes of the meeting, not necessarily in the report that's here. It does actually identify the Glen Estate, the work that was being undertaken, and I'm just wondering whether or not one of council's officers could just update us as to where that is happening, and whether or not the community members will be informed at some stage down the track as to where we're at.
Through the Mayor, we're undertaking some internal discussions at the moment in relation to the ideas that have been put forward. An inspection of that area, including the park and also the estate, will be undertaken within the next fortnight period. And we'll contact one of the main stakeholders in that subdivision, and we'll talk to them about the outcomes that come out of that meeting.
Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, look, I'd just like to commend the author of this. It's been great, great since this new council's been going to sit on the traffic committee, and I haven't done that previously, and I'm enjoying the time there, and it runs very well. So I thank the members of it, and really appreciate the reports and the way it runs. So yeah, if you can forward that on, that'd be great.
Thank you. Very good. Right, no further comment. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously.
Move that we go into confidential.
Move into confidential.
I'll move that we go into confidential.
Hang on a second.
On the books.
Is there a seconder?
Councillor Moore.
Councillor Marmol?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Move Councillor Thompson, second Councillor Marmol. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Where councils participate in meetings remotely by audio-visual link, they continue to be obliged to protect any confidential information considered at the meeting. Where the meeting are closed to the public under section 10A of the Act, councillors should ensure that they participate in the meeting in a location where they cannot be seen or heard by anybody else. Unfortunately, no one's doing that today. So,
Mr.
however,
Mayor, sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's been my experience that live streaming is turned off while confidential sessions are
That's
on and
correct.
turned back on again.
that's right.
Just want to list the reports.
Can I close the
Yeah.
door now?
Oh, yeah, we go to 12, which is 13.1, is confidential organisational structure. Is that the way you wish to deal with it?